Hello, our topic for this video is the Bee Gees. This is a musical group consisting of three brothers, Barry, Robin, and Maurice. And you have probably heard of the Bee Gees. They are one of the most famous and successful popular groups of all time. Here's some information from Wikipedia about them. That the Bee Gees Hall of Fame citation says, only Elvis Presley, the Beatles, Michael Jackson, Garth Brooks, and Paul McCartney have outsold the Bee Gees. So they've sold millions and millions and millions of records and albums. The Bee Gees are the third most successful band in Billboard charts history after the Beatles and the Supremes. Tremendously successful over decades. They adapted their music and changed their style throughout the time period. And I want to emphasize that this is another video in a series of videos that I'm making on popular musicians. It started with some research on what is in the charts of rock stars. We have a whole series of videos on that where we took the rock stars that are listed on a website, found the things that are consistent in their charts, apply the ideas to other groups, and here we're applying what we found in that research to the Bee Gees to see if the theory works, and it works beautifully, is what we're going to see. So this is a confirmation that these ideas on what is in the charts of successful pop musicians really works, and exactly what's in their chart depends on what they do. So first thing I want to do is just review a little bit about the Bee Gees so we have an idea of what we expect to look for. First of all, not only did they sell tremendous numbers of records, they wrote the music as well. They wrote hundreds of songs, dozens of hit songs. And the writing process usually involved two of them. More often, I think it was all three of them getting together, coming up with a title, coming up with some ideas, and the music just evolved out of their experimenting with some different sounds, and different lyrics or chord patterns. And it would develop, you might say, organically. I think this is very common in the songwriting process. You just kind of pick up certain concepts, certain melody lines or rhythms or whatever, and gradually start adding to it, and it develops. And I couldn't find any clear description other than that of what they did. And here's how Maurice explained it, and it's probably a fairly accurate quote of his. According to this website, what he said is, when we get together and write, it's not like three individuals. It's like one person in the room. Usually we have a book of titles and we just pick one. So by the way, there they are. This was back in 1973. Excuse me. So as I mentioned, the range of musical styles across the decades changed. In some of their early music, they have these melancholy ballads. Then they went into their disco music, this dance music phase. Their range of musical styles over the years, their collaboration with other stars like Barbra Streisand, their close friendships with many other top musicians like Michael Jackson and many others, and their ongoing success for decades. It's all a phenomenal story. Now, Maurice and Robin are fraternal twins, born 35 minutes apart. So what we have here is Barry Gibb, who's I think about 3 years older, and then the two twin brothers. And Barry Gibb is the only one who's still alive today as I make this video in the year 2021. So Maurice died suddenly at age 53, which was the year 2003, from a twisted intestine that caused cardiac arrest. That's the diagnosis that I read. And Robin died at age 62 in 2012 of kidney failure. There was some speculation that it was cancer. Anyway, different things are said. In any case, Barry is still alive. Okay, and also just to give you a little bit of an idea of their personal lives, Maurice was an alcoholic for many years. Robin used amphetamines to stay up all night to work. Barry frequently used marijuana. So they do not appear to have gone deep into very hard drugs. As the saying goes, drugs, sex, and rock and roll. But, their music is lighter. Their style was a little bit lighter than that. burn and crash kind of rock music, you might say. Um, Now, just to give you an up-to-date sense of what's going on, in January 2021, Barry Gibb, who again is the only one of the three brothers who's still alive, released the album Greenfields, the Gibb Brothers Songbook Volume 1. These are all songs written by the Gibb Brothers, and he's taken these classic songs and put them in a more of a country style. And he does a lot of duets with people like Alison Krauss, Sheryl Crow, Keith Urban, Dolly Parton. So he's collaborating and making what you might say is like a beautiful sound, using the best musicians to keep the legacy and the story of the music that the Gibb brothers wrote alive and well. And that's pretty much what he says about it, that to keep this beautiful music going. Now, what do we expect? Well, what we expect with heavy rock musicians is often 11 vibe, like a Venus, Uranus, Pluto. But notice that the Bee Gees are not like this crazy, intense, heavy, electric lead guitars and heavy drums. They go through a lot of different feelings and moods and styles. One of the most conspicuous things is their songwriting ability. And we find with songwriting, arranging, this creative process, what vibration is it? If you've been watching the videos, if you've been studying vibrational astrology, excuse me, you know it's 55 vibration. It's 55 vibration that shows up strongly very often in the birth charts of creative, popular musicians. Now, we have AA data for all three Bee Gees, means it's from a birth certificate or birth record. So our first guess, what's going on? 55 vibration. I recently made a video on the Carpenters, Richard and Karen Carpenter. Richard was the songwriter and arranger. And again, what did we find with Richard Carpenter? 55 vibration. Karen's 55 vibration tied beautifully into Richard Carpenter's 55 vibration. So we're expecting 55 vibration, very strong for all three, because all three are songwriters. And when you have extraordinary success, extraordinary productivity, extraordinary achievement, there's extraordinary astrological things going on. So I'm expecting, or guessing, I don't know if expecting is maybe too strong a word, but we're going to guess that 55 vibration is strong for all three of the Gibb brothers, and it overlaps, because that's the magic combination. When you and someone else have the same vibration strong, and your two vibrations integrate, the synastry combines together, we're going to see that this is exactly what is happening. It's so exciting to see that our theory applied over and over again works. Now, before we proceed, some of you may be thinking 55 vibration. What? This is some kind of wild fishing expedition coming up with these wild numbers. Well, actually, it's not such a wild fishing expedition. What we found in vibrational astrology is that what we call second order vibrations. By second order, I mean you take two prime numbers and multiply them. 55 equals 11 times 5. These second order vibrations, we have found over the years, at first it was very surprising. Didn't expect this. But what we found is that they have a very specific impact. You're taking two fundamental principles, in this case 5, which is an organic flow, a non-linear feeling of exploration and development, and 11, which is very moving and dynamic and restless, and you're taking the restlessness of 11, combining it with the free flow of 5, and you get this very fluid movement, very creative, non-stop. It's a beautiful kind of dynamic motion. It reminds me of looking at a stream, a rapidly flowing stream and you see the rocks underneath it, glistening underneath it, or some other kind of flowing, creative, organic process. This is the feeling of 55. It's very electric, very alive, and a lot of fun, a lot of excitement to it, a lot of freshness, a kind of exuberance in this exploration and this discovery and this continuous movement to see what we can find. So, what we realize in vibrational astrology is that the cosmic tapestry in which we live is like a living organism or complex integrated system where these higher order functions built from the primal functions build important experiences in our lives. What we're seeing in vibrational astrology is that these vibrations, again, to repeat this idea, it's like a complex integrated system where the vibrations combine, integrate, and create this almost like a living organism, a dynamic process. So it's so far removed from the idea of a few aspects and simple connections. We're seeing this network, this tapestry, this living, vibrating pulse of life. And so it's intricate, it's beautiful, it's fascinating, and this, I hope, gives you an intuition and feeling that the 55 vibration is not such a surprise now that we've developed the understanding of how vibrational astrology works. It's a very, very fundamental and specific vibration because it's a second order vibration. So, as I mentioned in a recent video I made of Richard and Karen Carpenter, 55 chart was very strong. But an additional thing that we found with the Carpenters, what we found is that there were small orbs and aspects like semi-squares in Richard Carpenter's chart. So when you have aspects like semi-squares and sesquiquadrats, the 1/8 and the 3/8 aspect in the 55 vibration chart, and the orbs are very small, we are inclined to want to double the vibration. We call it going up an octave, and to look at the 110 vibration. So what happens? To look at these three lines I have here in this bold blue, a semi-square in 55 vibration becomes a square in the 110. So as you go up an octave, the aspects go down an octave. The 1/8 goes to a 4th. Well, a square is much easier to look at than a semi-square, because when you look at a square, you know what the orb is automatically, because you know the planets will be in the same degree in minutes when they're exact. Semi-squares, it's, you have to add 15 to one of them. It's just not as simple and straightforward. So if you can go up an octave, it makes it easier to see what's going on. Well, when you go up an octave, the orbs become twice as big. So I have this here in bold blue towards the bottom of the slide. Orbs of aspects become twice as big when you go up an octave. So the semi-square turns into a square and the orb becomes twice as big. A square in 55 vibration, or any vibration, and then you double that vibration. So when we go to 110, squares turn into oppositions, oppositions turn into conjunctions. So, conclusion, going up an octave, in other words, doubling the vibration, makes the aspect configuration easier to see in a situation like this. So what I did with Richard Carpenter is he had a lot of things like semi-squares or sesquiquadrats, and we went up an octave. Amazingly, we end up with the same exact situation with the Gibb brothers. We're going to find these aspects like semi-squares and sesquiquadrats showing up in 55 vibration, and it becomes easier to see in 110 vibration. So what we conclude is that this seems to be a consistent theme with these creative musicians, these songwriters, that there are very close aspects in 55 vibration. Sometimes they can be semi-square sesquiquadrats, and they become easier to see if we go up to 110 vibration. So, what we find is that these vibrations go very high for astrologers who have not been introduced to vibrational astrology, it sounds unbelievable that we're looking at the 110 vibration chart to see the extraordinary songwriting ability, arranging ability, and success of this musical group who becomes one of the most successful musical groups of all times. But that's how astrology really works. We live in a beautiful, intricate cosmic tapestry. Until we had the computer age and we had databases and we had all this information available to us and we could build on the shoulders of other astrologers, it was not clear, but it is now clear. Also, note that I did not look at any other vibrations first. The very first vibration I looked at for the Gibb brothers was 55 vibration. And I found what I was looking for and I made this video. I didn't look at anything else because that's what I expected to work, and there it was. Because if you're new to these ideas of vibrational astrology, it sounds like, oh my God, 55 vibration. He must have tried a million things and landed on this one. No, it was the first one I looked at. And it all makes a lot more sense as you dive more deeply into vibrational astrology. So if you are a vibrational astrologer, this makes sense. It's pretty straightforward. If you're newer to vibrational astrology, it sounds a little wild and way out of the box, most likely. So we're going to look at the three Gibb brothers to see what's in their 55 vibration and see if the 55 vibration is strong. What makes a vibration strong? Usually two things. Either there are 4 planets within orb of being aspected to each other, and all 4 planets must be within orb. So, for example, if there's a grand cross, or there are 2 planets conjunct, making a T-square with 2 others, or making a grand trine, 4 planets all in a simple planetary configuration, and all 4 within orb, that's a strong vibration. What makes a strong vibration is having a lot of planets connected together. A lot means at least 4. When you have 4, it's really big. I mean, it's very, very powerful. Just having an aspect is interesting. Having 3 planets together, that's strong. Having 4 is really super strong. Now, the other thing that can happen is that instead of an aspect pattern, there's a midpoint pattern. So what we have in vibrational astrology is this idea that midpoint structures, which means one planet at the midpoint of 2 others, are just as important as aspects. So 4 planets forming 2 midpoint structures. Now, of course, if there's even more planets, like you have 5 planets in aspect to each other, you have 5 planets making a lot of midpoint structures, that's even more powerful. But the minimum is 4. So, conclusion, additional planets make the configuration even stronger. And of course, the smaller the orbs, the more powerful the planetary configuration. So, it's very straightforward. Does Barry Gibb, does Robin Gibb, does Maurice Gibb, do these 3 individuals have 4 or more planets connected in either aspect or a midpoint configuration? Now, Maurice and Robin are twins, but as you go to higher vibrations, the planets are moving faster. In the 55 vibration, everything's moving 55 times faster. So probably Maurice and Robin have very similar 55 vibration charts, but they can also be different. We'll see when we get to it. But they're twins, they're born 35 minutes apart. Likelihood is their 55 vibration charts are very similar, but probably not identical. We'll see when we get there. Depends on what planets are involved, if they're moving fast at the time they're born, and so on. Okay. So again, we expect, because all 3 brothers were songwriters, all 3 of them are songwriters. They all wrote songs independently. They wrote them together with one or both of the other brothers. They're all amazing songwriters. They're all great musicians. They're all great singers. So we expect all 3 charts to have strong 55 vibration. Unlike Richard and Karen Carpenter, where Richard was a songwriter and arranger, we expected the 55 vibration to be strong for just him, and we expected Karen to tie into it, which is what happened. Now, Let's start with Barry. Why am I starting with Barry? I'm not sure. Maybe I'm starting with Barry because he's the oldest. He's not one of the twins. He's also the one who's still alive. He also tended to be a little bit more the center of attention, I think, than the other two brothers. And whatever. In any case, we'll have to start with one of them. Let's start with Barry. Here is his 55 vibration chart. There it is. Now, is it strong? Well, are there 4 planets all aspected to each other, all within orb? Answer, no, there aren't. Using aspects, Barry Gibb has a strong 55 vibration chart. He has 3 planet combinations, which makes it strong. But we're looking for something super strong because this is one of the most successful songwriters and singers and musicians of all time in popular music. There's got to be something extraordinary going on. We want at least 4 planets. We want something huge because we're seeing huge success. We're very demanding in vibrational astrology. We don't want something that just shows up with any old person. When there's a special talent, I was going to say unique, well, maybe not unique, but very special, stands out, and the person is very successful with it, huge configuration. And here we're seeing only 3 planets. We're seeing Mars, opposition, Venus, and Pluto. That's 3. We're seeing these dashed red lines from Saturn going to Uranus and Pluto. That's 3. We need all 4 within orb. So we're not really getting that. We have a mystic rectangle, trine, sextile, trine, but this sextile's out of orb. Not good enough. You know, we're pretty strict in vibrational astrology because if we start getting loose, then we're not really seeing something that's so special that fits just this kind of situation. We're getting sloppy. We want to see if the astrology really works very clearly. So, we have one more possibility. Maybe he has strong midpoints. Yes. Huge, 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 huge midpoint configuration. And these dark blue curvy lines here is showing it. Let me explain what we're seeing here. I put a red curvy thing shape around Sun, Pluto, Venus, Mercury. Sun, Pluto, Venus, and Mercury are in what we call a string. String means they're equally spaced. So Pluto is at the midpoint of Sun and Venus is at the midpoint of Mercury, Pluto. And I copied and pasted onto this chart wheel the midpoint tree diagrams. You know, this is all produced in the Sirius software. Copied and pasted it from the page of midpoint trees onto here so we could see the orbs. Pluto conjunct Sun, Venus, midpoint, 25 minutes. And Venus conjunct Mercury, Pluto, 29 minutes. So these 2 midpoint structures are both less than half a degree. Less than half a degree is super strong. Very solid. And there we have it. So it's a stellium. Does the stellium make it stronger? Yes. We allow up to 16 degrees for orbs. So Sun is conjunct Pluto. Pluto is conjunct Venus. From Sun to Pluto is 14 degrees. That's weak. But there's conjunctions going on. So there's a stellium. But what makes the stellium strong is not so much the stellium. More important is that it's equally spaced. These are the basic ideas of vibrational astrology that we use over and over and over again. That alone is powerful. There's our 4 planets making 2 midpoint structures. That's all we need. That's it. But in addition to that, we have this rule for what we call supersymmetry. The rule is this. If we add one more planet to these 4 planets and we get another midpoint structure, then that adds to the configuration. So again, let me say the rule. We add one more planet and we get another midpoint configuration. So let me read from my notes. We're going to see there are 7 planets. This, in addition to these 4, we're going to see that Moon, Uranus, and Mars combined together. So these four, Sun, Pluto, Venus, Mercury, plus Moon, Uranus, and Mars, I'll show you in a minute how they work into this, all combined together in a 7-planet supersymmetry configuration. This is huge. This is huge. Just 4 planets is strong. 7 planets, tremendously strong. And look at the orbs. Before I explain exactly how it's formed, just take a peek at these orbs. In addition to the 25 minutes, 29 minutes, we have 21 minutes, 15 minutes, 6 minutes. There's also another one over a degree that's weaker. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 midpoint structures, all under half a degree. Extremely powerful configuration. So, we add Mars to this. Let's see. Add Mars to Pluto conjunct. We add Mercury and, okay, add Mars to Mercury and Pluto. So we have Mars conjunct the Mercury, or Mars' opposition to Mercury-Pluto midpoint. So this Mars up here, well, there's a Venus-Mars opposition. It's almost exact. So not only is Venus at the Mercury-Pluto midpoint, Mars is at the Mercury-Pluto midpoint, right? I mean, pretty obvious. Mars is also at the Mercury-Pluto, its opposition, that Mercury-Pluto midpoint. Remember, with midpoint structures, we use conjunctions and oppositions only, because an opposition is also equally distant from the other 2 planets. Mars is equally distant from Mercury and Pluto. It's on that midpoint axis. Venus-Mars opposition is right on the Mercury-Pluto midpoint. In fact, Mars has a slightly smaller orb than Venus, only 21-minute orb from the Mercury-Pluto midpoint. Venus is 29 minutes. But the rule is this. We add Mars to Sun, Pluto, Venus, Mercury, and we get another midpoint structure. Venus at Mercury, Mars at Mercury, Venus midpoint. Now, just to read from my notes, let's add the Moon. When we add the Moon, we find that Sun is conjunct Moon, Mercury. Well, what happens is we now have 5 planets: Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Pluto. Is there another midpoint structure that involves 2 of the 5 planets, 2 of the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Pluto, and 1 other? Yes. The Sun is at the midpoint of Mercury, Moon. So the Sun and Mercury, which are already part of our 5-planet configuration, combine with the Moon to make another midpoint structure. Now we have Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Pluto, 6 planets. And if we see another direct midpoint structure involving 2 of these 6 planets and another planet, it's part of the supersymmetry. The idea is we add 1 more planet to the planets that are already in the configuration, and we get another symmetry. And Uranus is at Sun, Mars, 6-minute orb, extremely strong. So Uranus is at Sun, Mars. And Sun and Mars are 2 of the planets in the configuration. And then we don't find any others. I'm not going to look at this Mercury, Moon, Jupiter. It's not that important because it's over a degree orb. But, if you're going to allow a 1.5 degree orb, Moon and Mercury are in the configuration. They're 2 of the planets. And so there's actually, if we include this, it's an 8-planet supersymmetry pattern. But let's leave that out and just stick to the really strong ones. With really strong, all under 0.5 degree, a 7-planet supersymmetry pattern. What this means is all of these 7 planets are all tied together, and they give it this potential for an exquisite, beautiful expression. So there we have it, a gigantic 55 vibration pattern, but in midpoints. Sometimes it'll appear in midpoints, sometimes it'll appear in aspects. When it's in aspects, it's more in your face, it's more undeniable. The symptoms show up, from an early age, usually rather stark. When it's a midpoint, there's a kind of finesse that can develop as the person gets older. And, Barry Gibb of the 3 brothers is, I think, pretty clearly the kind of the more stable one, more, easier to deal with. He was more like the pretty boy and very pleasant. So, I think people that knew them, based on all the biographical information, I would say, is that he was sort of the nice, less less pressured and extreme, and he's the one with the midpoints. Just in terms of being, you might say aggressive or pushy or demanding or needing, the midpoints often act with a little more subtlety and sensitivity, but just as powerfully, just as skillfully, just as talented, sometimes even more talented. So all the talent and capability is there. Anyway, he has a huge 55 vibration configuration. This is what we expect. What's amazing is how often this works. People who are songwriters of popular music have either 4 planets all aspected together within orb, or 4 or more planets in a supersymmetry pattern. Here it's 7 planets, and actually 8 if we allow a bigger orb. Gigantic, powerful configuration. We can discuss the meaning with the specific planets involved, but I'm already at a half hour, so let's keep moving forward and just focus on the real basics here. Now, how would somebody tie into this configuration? Let's go back to this chart wheel. How would the two brothers, Robin and Maurice, tie into this? They would tie into it by having a planet right on any one of these 7 planets. Usually it's a conjunction, sometimes an opposition, typically a conjunction. So if Robin or Maurice has a planet at 12 Taurus, or 5 Gemini, or 11 Gemini, within 2 degrees of any of these 7 planets, they get pulled, they get sucked into this 55 vibration. They connect, they bond, they resonate with Barry's creative songwriting and arranging capability. And that's where magic happens. Because when the 2 charts combine together, you've magnified yourself. Now you've got the power of 2 people. And it's like an exponential thing. Everything's getting multiplied, and you can do more with more people. It just grows tremendously. The power of the vibration becomes powerful. This is why people talk about the power of group meditations or everything. When you get more than one person, more people synchronized, in tune, and having these kind of astrological connections is what makes superpower possible. So I'm expecting, or guessing, we could say, and it ends up being true, that the 2 brothers are going to also have strong 55 vibration, and they're going to connect right in with Barry. This is the ultimate. This is the best. This is what you want. If you're looking for a special relationship in business, in a creative endeavor, in marriage, in anything, you find the powerful configuration that's involved in the activity. For Barry Gibb, it's 55 vibration, and you find people who also are strong in that vibration and connect with yours. Now you have the magic. Now you have the power. Now you can really, really do amazing things, and that's exactly what the Bee Gees did. Regardless of whether you like their music or don't like it, the power is there, the influence is there, as evidenced by the success that they had. Okay. Now, if you have a planet conjunct with more than a 2-degree orb, let's go back to this chart. Let's suppose that Maurice and Robin have a planet at 6 degrees Taurus or 7 degrees Taurus. It's close to the moon, within, say, 6, 7, 8 degrees, but not within 2 degrees. That's still important, but it doesn't tie in as much to the entire symmetry configuration. When you start getting within about 2 degrees, then that person's getting pulled into the entire symmetry configuration, or at least a lot of it. So up to 6, 7, 8 degrees, there's still a connection. Get down below about 2 degrees, and it starts resonating, vibrating with the entire or most of the configuration. So that's what we're looking for to see what's happening. Well, let's look at Robin's 55 vibration chart. There it is. There's Robin's 55 vibration chart. Now, question. does he have a strong 55 vibration chart? Yes or no? Answer is, give you a few seconds, yes. Unlike Barry, Robin has 4 planet configurations. So with Barry, it's with the midpoints. With Robin, it's with the aspects. Robin has Uranus, Sun, Mars, opposition Mercury. See, all 3 lines are there. Nothing's out of orb. We've set these aspect lines to the orbs that we use in vibrational astrology. Well, this is obviously very dynamic. Mercury at 23 degrees also is at the midpoint of Sun Uranus when we look at the midpoint structures. Very quick, very impulsive, very brash. Uranus, Sun, Mars, opposition Mercury. There's also another 4 planet combination of soft aspects. Moon is sextile Pluto. Pluto is sextile the Sun-Mars conjunction. Sun and Mars are conjunct within 1 degree. Notice all the aspect lines are there. You see the Moon trine Mars, that green line, Moon trine Sun. You see both sextile lines. As long as all the lines are drawn in, it's all within orb. It's that simple. So there's a Moon, Pluto, Sun, Mars. Wow, Moon, Pluto type energy. And the Sun and Moon, the lights trine each other with Pluto. So there's some compulsiveness, some obsessiveness. Moon Pluto tends to be a little bit difficult. There's like a neediness. There's something deep within boiling up. So this is a little different feeling from Barry, who's all midpoints, which is a little more delicate, you could say. Here we're having this compulsive neediness, this impulsiveness and spontaneity. And also there's another 4 planet combination. The dashed red lines are also important. And notice there are thick dashed red lines coming from Venus to Neptune, Sun, and Jupiter. So there is a Sun, Jupiter, Neptune, Venus. It looks like Mars is also within orb. Looks like all the lines are there to Mars. That would be a 5 planet configuration. So this is unusual. Robin has 2 4 planet combinations and a 5 planet combination all in the 55 vibration. Rather unusual. Now, I mentioned before we might want to go up to 110 vibration because then the semi-squares of Neptune to Sun and Mars, they will turn into squares. The square will turn into an opposition. These dashed lines will turn into semi-squares and quadrats. The whole thing will be easier to see if we go into 110 vibration. So when you see these semi-squares, sesquiquadrats, or sixteenths, we often go up an octave to make them easier to see, a simpler looking configuration. Now, the Bee Gees, here's some information about the Bee Gees. The Bee Gees broke up in 1969. So even though they had this huge success over decades, they had a lot of fights, breakups and getting back together. In fact, Barry, when his brothers died, he had a lot of sadness, he said, and wished that they hadn't died, with such tensions and bad feelings going on. The love that he has for them so deep, and he regretted that. So this tension between Barry and Robin came to a head early in the year of 1969 over an album called Odessa. It was set to have a song by Robin, I guess he was the singer of it, called Lamplight. But Robert Stigwood, who was arranging this, preferred to feature Barry singing 1st of May. So Robin was going to be highlighted, and the person arranging things decided, no, let's put Barry front and center with the song 1st of May. And Stigwood long had a theory that well-dressed, handsome young men sold records. So, Barry was, the pretty boy and, just kind of more magnetic, more charismatic. And so he wanted to feature Barry. Well, Robin didn't like this. Robin felt more and more that his songs could not get proper attention within the confines of the group. He had worked all his life with Barry, no doubt. he wondered what he could do on his own. On March 19th, 1969, Robin announced that he would make solo recordings. So there's these tensions. Now, this is only one point of conflict between Robin and Barry. And Robin, by all accounts, is more unusual and eccentric than his brothers. And these two configurations, the moon, particularly the sun, moon, Mars, Pluto, show his kind of compulsiveness, his Sun, Mars, Uranus opposition Mercury that we see, his spontaneity, his impatience, his quickness. He also has the Venus with Jupiter, Neptune, Sun, and Mars, which is more of a nice guy, generous. Venus, Jupiter, Neptune, very generous, and he was known for that. So people are complex. He can be very giving and forgiving in a way, but then also very demanding. So one quote from a website: with his goofy grin, lavender framed glasses, and that exuberantly fake toupee, there's something undeniably odd about Robin Gibb. Like many show business legends, and Gibb has been famous for 40 years now, he seems to have grown a little more individual with every passing year. They're talking about Robin. He's an individualist. He's an eccentric. He's a teetotaler, an ardent vegan. He is also a one-time shoplifter, an arsonist, and amphetamine addict. He enjoys an open marriage to a bisexual female druid and poetess. So he's odd. He's more eccentric. He looks a little more peculiar than the other two brothers. And a lot of things about his lifestyle are a little more unusual. Okay, so just giving you some background ideas, and this does correspond to what we see in the charts. Now here's Robin's 110 vibration. We want to go up an octave, and look how simple it looks. It makes the whole thing simpler. We see a grand trine of Sun, Mars, Moon, Pluto. It's just easier for us astrologers to look at it and see what's going on. We see that the Mars is weaker, the lines are thinner, the Sun, Moon, Pluto very strong. We see the big T-square of Sun, Mars, Neptune, Jupiter, and Venus within orb. You can follow all the lines, you can see them, and you can see exactly what's going on. So going up an octave, when you see those kinds of aspects, makes it much easier to see. And now we can see also clearly that this is a 5-planet configuration of Venus. The Venus semi-square Mars, a very thin line, just barely within orb. So just barely there, but it's a Venus, Sun, Mars, Neptune, Jupiter configuration. They're all aspected to each other. Okay, and this is Maurice. Now, Maurice and Robin are twins. How similar is it? Well, let's see. We have, if we go back to Robin, notice with Robin, these planets are pretty equally distributed. Uranus at 11, Mercury at 17, Sun at 24. If we do the midpoint structures on this, we're going to find that Mercury is at the Sun-Uranus midpoint. And then Mars, Sun-Mars conjunction. So that's how it looks in Robin's chart. Twin brother Maurice, born 35 minutes, I don't remember if it was earlier or later. Notice how the Uranus pulls away. Or actually, it's Mercury, Sun, Mars have moved forward away from Uranus. So it's 10 degrees from Uranus to Mercury. And it's much less of a tight configuration reinforced by midpoints. Let me go back. Here you see the equally spaced Uranus, Mercury, Sun, Mars with Robin. And with Maurice, it's more of just the 3 planets opposition Jupiter. So the Uranus is not so tightly involved in this configuration. Jupiter is more clearly involved with Mercury, Sun, Mars. The Mercury, Sun, Mars have moved closer to Jupiter. Going back to Robin, and the Jupiter is strong to Sun and Mars, but it's out of orb to Mercury. So Jupiter's aspecting very strongly 2 planets, but when we go to Maurice, Jupiter's aspecting all 3. So bottom line is that with Maurice, it's more of a Sun, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter. With Robin, it's more of a Sun, Mercury, Mars, Uranus. And Robin is the more eccentric Uranian one. And he's got Uranus involved in this huge configuration. So there's a lot of similarities. The moon is totally different. So we no longer have the Sun, Moon, Pluto, Mars grand trine that we saw in Robin's chart. We still have the Venus, let's see, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Neptune. So that configuration, nice configuration, generous configuration is still there. So we see the differences in their personalities, and it fits. What we're seeing here fits with the way they are. Very, very similar, but some differences between the two twins. And this is one of the things about vibrational astrology, is that in the 110 vibration chart, everything's moving 110 times faster. 110 times faster. So 35 minutes makes a difference. And that's why people born a half hour apart can be very different from each other. And if you want to see the differences real clearly, here's a bi-wheel with Robin's 110 vibe chart in the center and Maurice's 110 vibe chart in the outer ring. Just, you know, if you want to just see, like Mercury moved 4 degrees in 35 minutes, Sun moved 3 degrees. And you can look at it and you see the differences going on. So, the critical importance of these high vibrations helps explain why the twins are so different. For example, they look very different. You know, they're fraternal twins, and they look very, very different. I'm not sure you would even know they're brothers, let alone twins, just looking at them. And they both have Scorpio rising. I didn't show you their natal charts, but if you look at it, they both have Scorpio rising. So, same rising sign, very similar charts, but anyway, vibrational charts, you know, vibrational astrology will show you why people are different, because these high vibrations are very powerful. Very powerful, and this is where the talent often is in these high vibrations. It's amazing. It's maybe surprising if you're not familiar with it, but it's true. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move Barry Gibb's 55 vibe chart up an octave. We're going to double it to 110, and this is what his 110 vibration chart looks like. Very similar to what we saw with the 55 vibration. And there it is. And the 7-planet supersymmetry pattern is still there, and it's gotten even stronger. Now we have Venus, Mars, Uranus, Pluto, Sun, 5 planets. But remember, in the 55 vibration chart, each planet made only one midpoint structure. Now, Uranus is making 2 midpoint structures and Pluto is making 2 midpoint structures. The 7-planet supersymmetry pattern, in a way, is even stronger in the 110 vibration because it's picked up 2 additional midpoint structures. So we can call this a 7-planet, 7 midpoint supersymmetry pattern. In the 55 vibe chart, Barry Gibb has a 7-planet, 5 midpoint supersymmetry pattern. So a supersymmetry pattern always has at least 2 more planets and midpoint structures. So 7 planets, 5 midpoint structures is sort of the standard thing, but here there are 2 additional midpoint structures formed between the same 7 planets. So it means there's even more, like, you could call it like folding, like the planets are resonating even more clearly in the 110 vibration. Although the orbs have gotten bigger, so some of the orbs have gotten bigger, but it has more midpoint structures. They're both strong. Whether we look at it at the 55 vibration or the 110 vibration level, they're very strong. Now, let's look at a bi-wheel of Barry and Maurice's 110. For no particular reason, I'm going to use Maurice. If we use Robin, we're going to get similar results. You know, the twins' charts are different, but not too radically different. So we'll just use Maurice for no particular reason. And what we want to look for, here's what we're going to look for to see if this is a spectacular, wonderful relationship. Remember, what we're talking about here is keys to finding the most spectacular relationships. Spectacular in terms of being able to do what the planets are capable of doing. They had a lot of fights, wasn't, heaven on earth, but their ability to do 55 vibration things, creative music, was extraordinary. So, what we want to see, does Maurice have any planets within 2 degrees of Barry's 7 planets? The 7 planets in the supersymmetry pattern, which again are Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Uranus, and Pluto. If he does, wow, huge. And does Robin and Maurice, I wrote Robin here, but we're looking at Maurice, doesn't matter. Do Maurice's planets, because they're twins and it's very similar, but in Maurice's planets, are they within also 5 or 6 degrees? This would not be as powerful. But if they're outside of 2 degrees, at least there's some connection. Won't be super powerful. But for a super successful team like this, I'm expecting that Maurice probably has at least 1 or 2 planets right on some of Barry's 7 planets in the supersymmetry pattern. And vice versa, does Barry have planets activating Maurice's chart? Maurice's configuration is at about 25 degrees. Let's go back to Maurice. There it is. Notice Neptune 25 degrees, Pluto 25 degrees, Jupiter 26 degrees, Sun 27 degrees. Everything around 25 to 27 degrees. If Barry's 110 vibration chart has a lot of planets near 25, 26, 27 degrees, it's going to land right on this huge configuration and activate it. Also, the 10 degrees fixed, would have to be very exact to line up right there to make these semi-squared and sesquiquadrat aspects. So we want to see if, back to the slide, we want to see, does Maurice activate Robin's planets by being right on the planets in the supersymmetry pattern? And does Barry activate Maurice's chart by having planets somewhere around 25 to 27 degrees of any sign? Because it's going to make some aspects to those planets. And what we see here it is. Here is the bi-wheel, with Barry in the middle, Maurice in the outside, both 110 vibration charts, and it's phenomenal. It's fantastic. Both things are happening. What we're seeing, let's look at our first criterion. Does Maurice activate Barry? Does he have planets within 2 degrees of Barry's 7 planets of the supersymmetry? He has Neptune right on his moon, 1 degree orb. He has, in other words, Maurice has his Venus right on Barry's Sun, 1 degree orb. And he has Sun on his Mercury, 2 degree orb. So 2 of them within 1 degree orb, another one within 2 degree orb. There's also Mars, which is 3 degrees away from Mercury. So there are 2 cases within 1 degree and 1 within 2 degree orb. In other words, Maurice has planets sitting right on Barry's critical planets, on 3 of the 7 planets in the supersymmetry pattern, which means that Maurice's Neptune, Venus, and Sun get pulled into the whole resonance. They amplify it. They strengthen it. It's going to add some magic, some romance, some sensitivity with Venus, Neptune, and the Sun. It's going to light it up. And it's going to make it beautiful. It's going to add something beautiful to this. So there you have it. Now, vice versa. Does, let's see, what would we do? We want to see, does Barry activate these planets at 25 degrees of Maurice's chart? Remember, the Jupiter, Pluto, Neptune, and Sun, all at about 25 degrees? Well, obviously, yes. those same conjunctions that we just looked at, Neptune on Moon and Sun on Mercury, are the ultimate thing. Those are the two planets that activate both configurations. So both configurations are overlaying each other. And even the Venus on Neptune at the 10 and 11 degrees. So what we have here is the perfect synastry. We have the perfect synastry where both 55 vibration charts are aligned. They're activating each other, they're resonating each other. Both people have strong 55 vibration charts and they activate each other. Interestingly, they're strong for different reasons. Barry because of midpoints and Maurice because of aspects. But they line up right on top of each other. So what I have here in the pink, the pink shading here with red lines, we have, just to summarize, we have, this is Maurice on the outside, Maurice's Jupiter, Maurice's Neptune, Barry's Moon, Barry's Sun, Maurice's Venus, Maurice's Sun, Maurice's Mars, and Barry's Mercury, all lined up, all triggering major configurations. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 planets. If we want to stick within the 2-degree orb, 7 planets. That's a lot of planets all activating each other. In addition, we have another configuration moved slightly earlier. Actually, this is all part of the same thing, but slightly earlier is this Uranus-Pluto opposition of Barry square Maurice's Pluto. So there's a Pluto-Pluto square. This is a little earlier, 24 to 25. The other one's 25 to 27. They overlap. So there's a lot of other aspects I didn't draw in, the soft aspects. Maurice's Pluto is trine, Barry's Mercury, and so on. It's actually, all of this is all tied together, starting at 24 degrees and spreading to 27, 28 degrees, most of it extremely tight. And we have what's called same planet to same planet, which means Mercury to Mercury. It's 4 degrees. So the Mercury is solidly there, but this Mercury doesn't activate the whole pattern because it's more than 2 degrees away. There is a Mercury, there is a Pluto square Pluto, 2-degree orb. Okay, my friends, so those same planet to same planet things really are important. So this just says what I just explained. The red lines and red tint, we see Barry's huge 5-planet pattern aligned with Sun, Moon, Mercury in Barry's chart. Barry's Uranus opposition Pluto, which is central to his musical rhythm. Let me go back and show you this. It's really important. When we look at Barry's 110 vibration chart, Uranus is opposition Pluto, and both of them are at the Sun-Venus midpoint, shown right here. Uranus at Sun-Venus, Pluto at Sun-Venus, both under a 1-degree orb. They're also both at Sun-Mars. But the Uranus and Pluto at Sun-Venus in 55 vibration is a classic pattern for a charismatic pop singer, like a rock singer. It's got the rhythm, the vibrancy, the electricity, the charisma. We see it over and over and over again. Venus, Uranus, Pluto kinds of patterns. Here, Uranus is at Sun-Venus, Pluto's at Sun-Venus. We have a Sun, Venus, Uranus, Pluto configuration. In the 55 vibrations, so the emphasis is more on being flowing, creative, songwriting, and not so much what we see if it's an 11 vibration, which is just a harder, wilder, more strident kind of hard rock. So we're seeing exactly the quality of the music and the people. This Uranus, Pluto at Sun, Venus, there you see the disco, the breaking out into the rhythms, the wild falsetto, the getting you moving, the charisma of Barry Gibb. There it is, my friends. So I wanted to point that out. The details of the charts are here as well. It's very fascinating. They all overlap and integrate perfectly. It's extraordinary. So, as I mentioned, to keep this image from getting too messy, I left out the additional aspects. There's all kinds of trines and sextiles going on here. It's all tied together. Massive, huge configuration for some of the most successful songwriters of all time, performers, arrangers. There it is. And I did this between Barry and Maurice. And here's a tri-wheel. If you want to see all three, Barry in the middle, Maurice in the middle. Barry in the center, the inner ring, Maurice in the middle, and Robin in the outside, all 110 vibration. And you'll notice some curious things. For example, who's this in the middle? Maurice's Mercury is right at the midpoint of the other two Mercuries. So Robin's Mercury at 17 Virgo, Barry's Mercury at 25 Virgo, the midpoint of 17 and 25 is 21. There's Mercury at 21. So the midpoint of Mercury is called the composite midpoint. So very interestingly, the way this spreads, it ends up with Maurice's Mercury conjunct the composite Mercury of the other two. So all these Mercuries are in a stellium and they're equally spaced. It increases the communication, the connectivity, and the magic of the relationship. It's just very, very fascinating. Very fascinating. The two twins born 35 minutes apart end up with their Mercuries the same distance from each other as their older brother who's born 3 years earlier. And they're all in this perfectly aligned stellium, equally spaced. An equally spaced stellium is extremely powerful. It's at the heart of Barry Gibb's configuration in his 55 and 110 vibration. You'll see it over and over again. There it is, my friends. It's just amazing. Anyway, if you wanted to just see the difference between the two twins, there's a tri-wheel of all three of them. Conclusion. I went to 55 vibration to see if these hugely successful songwriters, they wrote so many incredible songs. They even wrote songs for other people that became hits for them. Songs that sometimes we don't even think of as by the Bee Gees, and you find out, oh my God, the Bee Gees wrote that. Will it be 55 vibration? Yes, it's confirmed. And just like with the Carpenters, it shows up in very high, we could call them overtones, is one term for it. Overtones of 55. In other words, go up to the next octave, 110, and you see conjunctions, oppositions, squares, even semi-squares and quadrats in 110 vibration. In fact, let me show you this. This is the 110 vibration of Barry and Maurice, the biwheel. And for example, Barry's Sun and Maurice's Venus are semi-square. This Neptune and this Moon, Maurice's Neptune, Barry's Moon, and Barry's Mercury, and so on. These semi-square aspects, some of them are very, very tight. Like this Sun, Barry's Sun, to Maurice's Neptune has a 2-minute orb semi-square. Nearly exact. What aspect, question for you, what aspect is this semi-square in the natal charts? If I compared Barry's natal chart, not his 110 vibration, but his natal to Maurice's natal chart, this is a 1/8 semi-square. So the actual aspect is 1/8 times the vibration, which is 110. 8 times 110 is 880. What I'm saying is that an 880th harmonic chart is part of the magic of this songwriting team. The 880th. Vibrational astrology has now moved so far beyond and outside the scope of anything anybody has previously imagined. Well, I shouldn't say that. Some of the ancient Vedic literature, they refer to extremely high divisions, very small divisions, extremely small divisions. I think there's been intuitions and sensitivity and awareness of this. But at least in modern times, over 99% of astrologers have no sense that there could be this intricate tapestry. And by going to the vibrational charts, we're able to see the relevant aspects forming these configurations. It's astounding. Astrology is nothing like what I thought it might be when I started researching it in 1972. The complexity and intricacy is astounding. And fortunately, we have stumbled into discovering how to find them. When we found out that the midpoints are very powerful, and these supersymmetry patterns, step by step, stone by stone, we've discovered these key ingredients, these key factors to understand how this works. Okay, so it's phenomenal, it's extraordinary, and what we're finding is that we go directly to it. We expect 55 vibration chart, it's there. We use our basic rules, and I was able to make these discoveries and make this video all within, one sequence of activity, basically one less than 1 day. In a very short time, I found it. It takes a long time to make the charts and save them, and tint everything and draw everything and explain it. That's what took time. Actually seeing it stands right out. So we can analyze the charts in more detail, of course. I've mentioned a few things. But, I'm already over 1 hour. This is a very long video. Bottom line is we live in a beautiful, intricate, vibrational tapestry. With modern technology and persistence, we are unlocking secrets of astrology that provide a foundation for a much more reliable and useful form of astrology. I say that because we're seeing things like the actual musical talent that led to such extraordinary success. We found it. I think this is so exciting. Extraordinary success invariably happens with extraordinary planetary configurations. There it is. It's so exciting. I can't imagine what we'll learn in the future to get even more specific and more detailed. Okay, that's it, my friends. Another example of applying what we learned from studying other successful popular musicians. And again, just like we saw in the recent video I made on the Carpenters, these exquisitely beautiful planetary configurations making this enormous success possible. So we now have some keys to know what it takes to make super success. Thank you very much for listening, my friends. God bless. Namaste.